Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamu alaikum. Hello and welcome. My name is Munib Ahmed Shahzad. I am Secretary to Management Committee of Bahrain Chapter of ICAP. I'm an associate member of Institute of Chartered Accountants of Pakistan. I welcome you all on behalf of Bahrain Chapter of ICAP members and CFA Society Bahrain. I thank you all for joining us today for making this event remarkable and memorable. I warmly welcome both the speakers for joining us for today's event. ESG is a very hot topic, and today, after the event, we will have a better understanding of ESG, sustainability and responsible investing, and ESG standards and reporting requirements. At the start of the event, I only know what ESG stands for, but hopefully after the event, we all will have a better understanding of the subject. The time has arrived when the world needs to be more responsible than ever. I know a lot of companies have already taken many initiatives to protect the environment, but only a few have formally adopted the standards issued by ESG organization. To protect the environment, understanding of 3 R's are very important. One is reduce, second is recycle, and third is reuse. If we adopt these 3 R's, we can conserve some of the natural resources for our future generations. Now, I will move forward with the agenda, and I will invite the chairman of the Bahrain chapter of ICAP members for Bahrain. Mr. Saeed Bhatt is a seasoned banking and finance professional with a career spanning over 2 decades of experience in the banking industry, as well as audit and assurance services. During his career, he served reputed organizations such as Ernst & Young in Pakistan and Aziani Investment in Bahrain. Currently, he's heading the finance department of the Ascon Bank. He's a fellow member of ICAP and an associate member of ICAEW. Please welcome Mr. Saeed Bhatt.
Assalamu alaikum and good evening, ladies and gentlemen. From Bahrain chapter of ICAP members, I welcome you all to the seminar on ESG, sustainability and responsible investing, and ESG reporting requirements. I'm very grateful to the CFA Society Bahrain for their collaboration for this event. And I'm also thankful to Mr. Ashfaqullah, the president of ICAP, Mrs. Hina Osmani, chairperson, Overseas Coordination Committee of ICAP, our coordinator, Ms. Zarmeen Khan, and other support team in ICAP office Karachi, the team of Bahrain chapter ICAP, chairman of the KSA chapter, Mr. Faisal Bukhari, our team of volunteers, and our senior members in Bahrain for their continuous support and guidance. I would also like to thank the event sponsors, Aramis Technologies Bahrain and Itmar Bank Bahrain, for their support for this event to promote awareness on ESG standards. For this event, we received a quite overwhelming response for this seminar, and almost 250 total registration we have received for this event, mainly from the online audience, and the physical attendance is also quite on the high side. On ESG, as we see that it is covering quite an extensive area on ESG, like sustainability and responsible investing, and also reporting and disclosure. It is quite extensive, and our speakers have prepared quite extensively on that. So I will not take the limelight from them. So I'm confident that you will get a very comprehensive understanding of ESG standards and the related reporting requirements from our speakers who are experts in the subject matter. So I will ask Mr. Munib to continue the agenda, and we can move forward on that. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Mr. Said Bhatt. Now I would like to invite our Vice Chairman, Mr. Arshad Gadet. He has over 2 decades of experience working in three different continents. Prior to joining the ATH Gadlang, Arshad led the audit practices at BDO Bahrain as an assurance and business advisory partner, and was also assuming responsibilities of risk and technical partner for Bahrain, Oman, and Qatar offices. An e-commerce enthusiast and a highly motivated business leader with a proven track record, technically astute ability to grow the business, and possess sound financial services industry knowledge. Please welcome Mr. Arshad Gadet.
Thank you very much. Pleasure to see you all. My name is Arshad Gadet, and I'm delighted to be here. And thank you very much for the speakers to be participating with us. And inshallah, we will be hearing something really deep inside knowledge on ESG topic. The topic has been very brand new for the region. Brand new because a lot of organizations are still learning what this is and how this will be integrated with the organization's ethos. So inshallah, we will be hearing more from you. Best of luck, and I hope that we can learn as much as possibly can from this seminar from the seasoned professionals, inshallah. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Arshad. Now I would like to invite Ms. Lamis. She's an experienced risk and corporate governance executive, with over 30 years of enterprise risk expertise across a broad range of asset classes and a multi-billion credit portfolio. As a trusted advisor to boards and C-suite stakeholders, she has been able to drive transformation and change to keep pace with regulatory requirements and enable growth, profitability, and operational resilience. She's CFA, FRM, Risk and Corporate Governance Professional, Chair of CFA Society Bahrain ESG Committee. Please welcome Ms. Lamin.
Hello, everyone. I'm very happy to be here with you today, this evening. Many thanks for all of you who have joined us, and many thanks to the members of CFA Bahrain and of ICAP who are listening to us online. This is the first collaborative event between the ICAP and the Bahrain branch and CFA Bahrain. We're very pleased with this cooperation, and we do look forward to further events, joint events together. Today, we are talking about the ESG sustainability, and the ESG disclosure standards. We are very lucky to have two exceptional speakers today. We have Clarisse Simon, who is Executive Director of We ESG and co-founder of We ESG. And we have Fauzia Khan, sorry, who is joining us from Saudi. Hi, Fauzia. And she is with Pro Hussein Chaudhry and Co. So we're very pleased to have them on board. I'm sure they are subject matter experts, and we will be learning about the two topics of hopefully climate risk, and sustainability, and the disclosure standards. For those who do not know about the CFA, I would like just to say a few words about it. The CFA Institute is a non-for-profit organization. It's headquartered in Charlottesville, Virginia, USA. It really prides itself in being able to provide a curriculum for the investment professionals that focuses on ethics, standards, and education in the investment field. CFA Institute is the largest association of investment professionals. In response to the great interest in ESG and all ESG related matters, I would say, CFA Institute in the past 3 years ago has introduced a new certificate. It's the Certificate in ESG Investing. This certificate is aimed at professionals in the investment field who want to expand their knowledge in the area of ESG and sustainability. It focuses really on developing the mindset, the skills, and the strategy needed to navigate the investment industry from an ESG standpoint. We're very happy to have one of our speakers today, Clarisse, who has helped develop the program. So I'm sure she will enlighten us with a lot of knowledge in that area. The certificate of the ESG investing, if you're interested in that, please check it online or come and ask me. You can view it under the CFA Institute website. I would like to thank you all for attending. I wish you a very pleasant event that you will learn and grow from. And thank you for ICAP for doing this joint event with us. And thank you for the speakers and for our sponsors. Have a good day.
Thank you very much, Lavis. Our subject matter specialist speaker, Ms. Clarisse Simonic, Executive Director and co-founder of VESG United Kingdom. She has specialized in responsible investment for over 10 years with both executive and non-executive experience, worked for asset owners, managers, and universities across Europe, the Americas, and Asia. Members of the S&P Global Sustainable Finance Scientific Council and UK's Prosperity Funds, Brazil Green Finance Committee, academic advisor of the CFA's ESG investing certification, and sports academic programming for the University of Cambridge and ASIC Paris, Singapore. Please welcome Ms. Clarisse Simon. Wait,
Some technical error. We will try.
But I
to-
think our online audience can view this on screen. Who closed this? It is automatically closed.
No, maybe it's long time not using it, but trace certain this one.
No.
Now it's nice.
We can hide.
Is it possible? Or do they have two sheets?
Message. No, these are not appearing only.
Only you will be able to see.
Actually, all being aired at the same time.
Yes.
So it's treating the projector as yet another display.
Oh,
So online, they're just seeing the presentation.
okay.
And we're-
So only you guys. will
We are
be able
on
to hang out.
ground.
Okay,
But we won't tell anyone.
thank you.
Okay, you can use this. So.
Look, I don't mind. So apologies for the technology. Next time I'll bring my printouts. Sometimes we try to make these things too fancy. But anyway, it's an absolute pleasure to be here. Thank you so much. I'm very, very honored by the invitation, especially since I'm relatively new to the region. It's been 2 years since I moved here from Europe. So it's a great opportunity for me to interact with the finance industry. Thank you. Look, I think we'll crack on. So perhaps just taking a step back, and I have a title here as well, so we're starting very well. What is sustainable investment, right? What do we mean by ESG when we're talking about it? So a lot of us think directly on the issues of ESG, right? So we think of climate change, biodiversity, right? So the amount of animals that are out there, water efficiency, energy efficiency. On the social, we think of equal opportunity, freedom of association. So people getting together to negotiate with their employers, health and safety. On governance, we think of business ethics, such as, for example, corruption, tax. Oh, and there go my notes. But the reality is that all of this is actually sustainability. What we mean by sustainable investment is when we recognize that these things can and should be included in financial decision making. And that can be included in two separate ways. Thank you very much. There we go. So there are two different ways to look at ESG. One is, it's how do environmental, social, and governance factors impact the financial performance of that company. So it can either be a risk, you can reduce, for example, inefficiencies in water, for example, or the reduced yields of agricultural products, given climate change, for example. So all of those are risks. But it can also be opportunities. We've seen, for example, the significant rise of renewable energy, right? That's an opportunity for the company for growth, financial performance, that is related to sustainability. So that's one thing, that's the financial materiality of ESG factors. The other aspect, the other side of the coin to sustainable investment is recognizing that every single economic activity, whether we want it or not, whether we're managing or not, has a positive on environment and society. And that impact can be both positive and negative. So what am I talking about? So here I'm not seeing how environment and society are impacting the company. I'm seeing how does the company impact its employers, its employees, so, the local community that's around their plants. How is it impacting the lands that's around it? Or, for example, is it polluting rivers? So we see that there's two kinds of materiality, and we actually call this double materiality, which is how does ESG impact the company and how does the company impact the real economy? So that is the definition of sustainable investment. There we go. Thank you. I think perhaps it might be here. Sorry. So hopefully those online were able to hear me before I can actually look at this. Oh, there we go. So one of the things that you might remember if you've heard already of sustainable development is those three circles that exist, right? Social, environmental, and economic. And I would argue that that is an old way to think of sustainable development, because that doesn't necessarily recognize the interdependency between those three spheres. So here in the image, what you have is actually work done by the Cambridge Institute for Sustainability Leadership. I was leading their work with global investors such as HSBC, PIMCO, etc., for them to better understand how is our investment portfolio related to environment and society. So here you have a recognition that the financial and investment, the returns of that is directly dependent on society and environment, right? You can imagine, for example, if there are resources such as water or such as rare earth minerals that start decreasing in their availability, Coca-Cola's product is going to become more expensive, or they have to reduce their margins, for example, if there's less water. Batteries using a lot of rare earth minerals, they're going to become more expensive, or we're going to have less of them if we use too much rare earth minerals and don't find alternatives for that. So these interdependencies is what truly defines sustainable investment. So in a sense, it's not necessarily about doing good. Obviously, there's an aspect of that, but it's really understanding what is core in terms of these dependencies for the functioning of my corporation, of my financial institution. And the other aspect that revolves around this as well, which is on the impact side, is the recognition that the way that we invest indirectly impacts our GDP. What do I mean by that? If we are steering capital to activities that result in high carbon emissions, that results in increased climate change. And by increased climate change, there are a significant amount of studies out there showing that climate change, the increase of climate change, is impacting GDP growth because of increased floods, increased droughts, sea level rises. I used to work in the UK when I worked for Cambridge, and at the time, it's probably around 7 years ago, the Financial Times headlines was, "We are now having the first climate migrants of the UK." There were certain villages in Wales that the houses were very close to the seashore, and with sea level rises, those individuals lost their homes, right? Insurance doesn't cover it because it's an act of God. Governments can't cover it. They lost their property. What if that was your real estate portfolio? That's gone, right? So we recognize that the way we invest impacts GDP, but also impacts the assets, the corporations that you are exposed to via your portfolios. So what's driving a lot of advancements around sustainable investments? Regulation, because whether you want it or not, if you're being regulated for ESG, that's something that you have to do. And why do I believe, and I'm proposing here, that regulation is actually only going to pick up even faster? Well, because all of these regulators over here, regulators and central banks, have come together to form something that's called Central Banks and Supervisors Network for Greening the Financial System. NGFS for those that are a little more intimate with it. So basically, it's a high number of governments around the world that have come together to say, we as regulators understand that climate can impact financial stability. That's something that's not new. When Mark Carney was the governor of the Bank of England, as chair of the Financial Stability Board, he gave a very important speech called Tragedy of the Horizons. That was about 5 years ago, where he basically said, this does impact financial stability, but our financial monetary systems do not recognize it because we work in 3-5 years. And obviously climate change, we're going to see the big impact of it further down the line, although obviously we're seeing that already. So with these governments working together, they're learning best practices, right? In general, Europe is quite advanced. What is it doing? It's sharing, all right, I did this regulation. This is the way the industry has reacted to it. This is how to polish it, so that the regulators that come after it don't start from zero. They're actually starting from 50%, 70% in terms of understanding how effectively those regulated entities, how to set up regulation that can be effective for those entities. And that's the outcome of it. That is the aggregate number of regulations specifically around sustainable finance. Europe, the last time that I went on this database, has around almost 30 regulations just around sustainable finance. If I remember correctly, the last time I checked, UAE has 3. And this is ramping up. So if it hasn't reached your country yet, it's sure about to come. These are just some cases. I'm not going to go through all of them. I'm very happy to share the slides if anyone is interested. So these are just some examples of regulations. So you see that it goes certainly beyond Europe, has reached China, Korea, Singapore. So basically regulators indicating to pension funds, to asset managers, to banks, that you, at the very least, you have to start reporting on the risk that you are undertaking via your assets, via your counterparties, the climate risk. And we're talking about transition and physical risk, and I'll get to that later. But also some of the more advanced regulators are also saying it's not only about the risk that you're undertaking, but how are you contributing to a sustainable financial system, which includes reducing the amount of carbon that you're responsible for via your capital allocation. What are some of the other drivers for the increase in sustainable investments? Academic studies, lots of them. The reason why I chose these 3 is they're not studies, they're actually meta-studies. So for example, the most recent one conducted by Rockefeller Asset Management and NYU, they looked at 1,000 studies and actually identified that around 60% showed a positive relationship between ESG at a corporate level and their corporate financial performance. So these are the academics saying that the studies are, robust to say that there is a positive relationship in a company improving its actions, its risk mitigations around environment, social, and governance. One of the things that's interesting is that the number that you see here is around 60, which is similar to the other studies that you've seen here. So that's the positive findings. The negative findings are just around 10%. So that's to say that it's not 50-50, it could be very negative. It's just 10% of the studies that show the negative correlation between ESG and financial performance. And last but not least, we have client demand. This over here is a survey conducted by FactSet, and they went around the world asking wealth management clients. I don't know how many of you here work from wealth management, but around 50% of clients indicated that they are interested in their wealth manager screening or integrating ESG. So it's also a commercial driver, even in the retail space. So skip here. What are some of the ways that investors have been implementing in practice ESG? So this over here is the WEF's Global Risk Report. One of the things that's interesting is that you'll see the past more than 15 years now, but basically what they had identified in those years, starting here with 2007, are the different key risks that exist for the financial system, right? So the likelihood and the impact on your rights. So you see that these have changed drastically in the past few years from economic risks to environmental risks, right? And this is not Greenpeace. This is the World Economic Forum conducting, their analysis of risk. So what several investors have started to do is try to understand what are the environmental risks that a sector or a region are exposed to, and how do I analyze the financial impact that that could have in the company, be it on the revenue, be it on the capex of the company. For example, oil and gas companies, we imagine that they will have to shift their business models, right? We'll need fossil fuel, but not as much fossil fuel, right? So we're shifting to renewable, etc. So we'll have to invest in capex, either to shift to renewables or to other things, right? We've seen Aramco, for example, become the distributor for cloud. We've seen it conduct M&A with a company that does automation of industrial processes, right? So we're seeing all of them invest. And then last but not least, OPEX, right? So be it carbon taxes that increase your operations, be it the increased cost of energy, for example, we're seeing now with Russia, but obviously quite structural issues there around climate change. So this means that they understand from a regional perspective, from a sector perspective, how is that impacting and how do we consider in our financial models? Here's just to say that at the very least, when we're looking at sustainable investment, we should consider what do we not want to invest in? And here I just wanted to highlight that ESG funds from an ethical perspective are not very different from the religious funds, right? So here's just a comparison to say that there is some overlap, which can bring the two together. There's a thematic approach as well. For example, if you're thinking of, all right, I'm going to invest in sustainable cities because I believe that the urban landscape will change. I can invest in water because it's increasingly a rare resource. So there are aspects of thematics and trying to identify, these are usually growth funds. If any of you work with growth funds, right? What are the companies that are going to ride the wave of these trends that we are seeing? And impact investing is looking at companies that have a core product that addresses social and environmental challenges, while also delivering on financial performance. How am I doing on time, please? Just so that I don't run.
It's okay.
Over.
You can carry on.
I'll try to wrap up quickly. Last but not least, at the end of the day, what matters? It's either the price of the equity that you're looking, or the valuation of the company. So they're actually a very robust way nowadays to consider how these ESG issues hit your DCF, right? So for example, if we're thinking of revenues, CapEx, OPEX, that would of course impact the numerator in terms of your free cash flow. When we're looking in the bottom, we're looking at required rate of return. That is impacted generally by the risk that you associate with that company, right? So generally that's volatility, beta, etc. One of the key things that with regards to ESG that does impact, and investors have been adjusting their rate of return or cost of capital, is governance. Because at the end of the day, if you have a board that is not independent, and this is not providing the correct oversight of the CEO, or for example, if you have a CEO that doesn't have the right incentives in place, right? The KPIs for their variable remuneration is not aligned with the strategy of the company, that company probably is at higher risk for you because the incentives, the oversight is not aligned with your interest as a shareholder. I will skip a few. So here's just a bit of a cheat sheet. How can you identify what is financially material for a company? So there are two questions that I'll leave you with. One is, what ESG issues can harm investors directly? So we just looked, for example, at DCF and how we can think of how issues can impact revenue, capital expenditure, and operational expenditure. And the other issue is also, how can ESG create opportunities in comparison to peers? If you think, for example, why is McDonald's all of a sudden using vegan meat, such as Beyond Meat, if you heard of that brand, in their products. It's because they believe that the consumers of junk foods will actually gradually shift. So they don't want to lose their market. So they're adapting to this new generation of millennials that want more healthy, less animal cruelty, et cetera, et cetera. So by comparing how the company that you're interested in investing is doing against its peers, you can also identify winners and losers from that perspective. Transmission channels. Again, you'll have the slides, so I'm not going to go into a lot of detail, but here you see all of the different ways that these ESG issues can impact companies. So lower profitability, less stable, so higher volatility. For example, if you're thinking of boycotts, of reputational risk, it can have lower drawdowns, for example, in terms of equity. It can have a higher beta. And here I just have some case studies of financial institutions that have were forced to have either put policies in place or reinforce their policies due to the reputational risks of some of these issues. So for example, here was HSBC that had to stop engaging with some of the corporates, had to stop offering them loans because of the associations to deforestation. And then surprise, Bank of China, who you would imagine is a great source of funding for all of the coal energy that China is still dependent on, has committed to stop financing new coal. What does that mean, right? If you've been following the Paris Agreement and climate agreements, you saw in the last COP, which is the annual meetings of countries that signed up to climate agreements, that they have collectively agreed to phase down coal. So the question is, if you're a smart investor, do you want to put new capital in an industry that has its days counted? This was so much to say. This was actually the first time ever in the history of investment that investors were public about the fact that they were boycotting an IPO. So Deliveroo, it's a bit like Talabat in Europe, if you're not familiar with that. And their workers, their writers are not considered employees. So there were 4 investors, Aviva, Legal & General, over 2 trillion of asset under management, that said publicly, first time ever that this happens, we will not invest in the IPO of Deliveroo. And if you followed the IPO of Deliveroo, the stock actually went significantly down because of this. But just to say that it is now impacting even IPOs, which had not happened before. If you want a cheat sheet of what is financially material for the sector or the company that you're covering, I highly recommend this framework. The chairman of this initiative is Michael Bloomberg. So a significant indication of how serious they are in terms of this being relevant to investors. It's called the Sustainability Accounting Standard Board, and you can access their website for free, and you just click on the sector that you're interested in, and it'll tell you some of the issues that are probably financially material for the company that you're reviewing. And happy to answer any questions either now or at the end of the meeting, as you guys prefer. Thank you very much for your attention today.
The slide showed IPOs in fact, and in 2020 it was all green at the top. Can you just elaborate on that? I mean, that indicates that everything, all the major risk categories are environmental.
Yes, absolutely.
I mean, does that mean all the other categories are completely disappeared, because it was all green? So I didn't quite understand.
So if we look at 2022, geopolitics is probably quite high again. So obviously these things can change from one year to the other. If we look at the IMF, it actually stated, and those were environmental but social too, the IMF said that the 2 highest risks for financial growth are actually climate change and increasing income disparity, right? So it's not the fact, so actually poverty has been decreasing, fantastic. But income disparity, the fact that probably Oxfam does a study every year. I think the last statistics were the 15 people most, the most rich 15 people have the same wealth as 50% of the population, right? So that's just increasing. So just to say that these shocks to the system that are social and environmental actually impact GDP. But perhaps more directly to your question, what are some of those environmental issues, right, that are very high there?
This data you think green and all year,
Green is environmental,
only environment.
only environmental. So we're looking, for example, at that was social. That I think that was either reds or purple. I don't remember off the top of my head.
There's no social, there's no government, so environment.
Yes. Because if you look at climate change, that is already impacting GDP. One of the things that we are not talking about yet, but write this down, it's going to come very, very quickly, is biodiversity. The Dutch Central Bank last year conducted a study on how exposed its financial system was to decreasing rates of biodiversity, and it was around 30%. So what we have seen around 7-8 years ago of regulators doing these stress tests around physical and transition risks for the financial stability, banks are already starting to do with biodiversity. So we're already talking about biodiversity being the next climate. And actually the regulator in France, just this year, last year, integrated in the reporting of funds, how funds are mitigating biodiversity risk. That's the first government ever to pick this up. But if it's in France, it's going to get to the EU, and then it's going to get to NGFS, right? And then it's going to roll out to other countries. Apologies that I extended quite a bit in that answer. Please, sir.
Thank you very much for your presentation. It's from the finance side, it's quite informative. I, being an environmental engineer, I've been working here with the Ministry of Environment. And we have been always, for major projects, there is always a necessity, it's a mandatory requirement that for the projects, environmental and social impact assessments have to be done.
Yes.
And unless those impacts are not being approved and implemented, then fundings are not being granted, even on a major projects by funding agencies, World Bank, and other associated grants. So environment and social impacts are always being addressed, but the governance parts are a little bit very weak, because once we get the documented approved, the monitoring is certainly not being carried out as it should have been, which is also causing the impact on climate change, biodiversity, and other associated factors. So what highlight this investment part is in the governance factor, please. So
let me just paraphrase your question to be sure that I understood you correctly. Are you asking about how can investors continue to monitor the impact of projects that they fund? Or are you asking about governance in the sense of the governance of corporate governance? So how the board is, for example, independent, the remuneration of the CEO, etc. Which one of those two were you?
the first one.
The first one. Excellent. So there, one of the things that has picked up in Europe is a regulation called SFDR, so Sustainable Finance Disclosure Regulation. So every single year, you have to report at a fund level what's the impact of your assets in aggregate on 18 KPIs, which includes environmental and social. So for those funds, that's already covered in that sense. If we're looking at smaller companies, which generally are not listed, so they wouldn't be included under SFDR, for example. They are private equity, private credit, real estate, etc. Then it is the awareness of the investor to consider, I should be monitoring this impact because the promise that I got in the beginning obviously needs to be delivered. So that's not regulated yet, but I agree with you that that's something that investors should certainly be monitoring so that they ensure that it remains in compliance with what was agreed in the beginning. Thank you very much. Thank you.
A question from online audience. It is Mr. Rashid Azim. I think ESG is very personalized For example, one company is good in E, but not complying S factor. In this case, how to risk rate that company the recommended approach.
Thank you. Excellent question, because it really speaks about the, how do we call it? The balancing act, that's not the word, but I forgot the word that I'm looking for now. The trade-offs, sorry, that's the word that the trade-offs that exist, right? So for example, when we're thinking of solar panels, excellent, right? Because they are contributing to renewable energy. But if those solar panels are being constructed in a way that has modern slavery or child labor in it, right? And when we're obtaining the minerals for them, then should we be investing in solar panels or not, right? So what we generally consider is let's focus at the product level, because at the end of the day, the product is one of the key contributions that that organization has to society, right? So let's look at the impact of the product. And then on the operation side, so we're trying to have a product that has positive impact. And then on the operation side, let's be sure that at least it reaches minimum standards, right? And then there can be an engagement as well. What do I mean by engagement? There are certain regions, communities in the world where child labor is a reality in terms of ensuring the livelihood of those families, right? Some parents can say, if my child doesn't work, we don't have enough to eat on the table. So the reality is that we can't, in my personal view, we can't say, okay, this kid doesn't work from, starting tomorrow. So how do we agree with those communities? A transition, right? So it is to say, how do we compensate those parents for the reduced income when that child goes to school? How do we include other support systems? How do we raise, so we find a solution for that community. So that's an aspect of the trade-offs that exist. Another issue is when we're looking at ESG ratings, if you have large investment, many companies in your portfolio, you're probably not doing the analysis of those companies in-house. You're probably getting ESG data providers to do that. And each ESG data provider has their own methodology in terms of the weights that they give to these two different issues, right? So the question that the gentleman asked, it's, do you give more importance to the environmental issue or to the social issue? And that goes back to the materiality. Which one is more material for the company? So which one can either make or break the company in a bigger way? But I completely agree that it is highly subjective, right? You should be able to defend it and argue why one has a greater weight than the other, but these things certainly remain highly subjective. Shall I read the next question? Okay. So the question is, well, you can read it here, but would you please highlight the opportunities arising due to ESG? Excellent question, because it's not just about the risks, right? It's about the opportunities. And hopefully I touched upon that when I described the thematic funds, right? So what are thematic funds? We look at sustainability megatrends, right? So we talked about nearly all governments agreeing to reduce carbon emissions. We talked about millennials looking for healthy foods, no animal cruelty, etc. So we try to see how is society changing because we're heading towards a more sustainable development, right? And then you look at what are the companies, and not just the company that is the large company that's going to sell, for example, to the ultimate client, but the supply chain, right? So what are the sectors, what are the companies, what are the business models that are going to benefit from that mega trend? And then are they priced correctly or not? Because at the end of the day, if that's priced already, you're not interested. But if they are mispriced, so if the market hasn't yet identified that growth opportunity, then obviously that could be a financial opportunity for a growth fund, for example. So I think I'll wrap there. Thank you very much again, everyone.
Thank you, Clarice, for letting us know that the economic risk is not alone that impacting our finances, but there are many other risks as well, and we need to manage those risks as well. Thank you very much. Now, before moving to the next speaker, I would like to invite our chairman. He will introduce the sponsors of today's event. Please.
As an appreciation of support from our sponsors, I will quickly highlight their services. One of our key sponsors is Smart Bank. We are very thankful. They continuously support our events, and especially for the ESG. They were very much interested, and they did not, there was no reluctance from their side, and they were quick to confirm their participation in the event. Our second sponsor is Aramis Enterprise. I would just like to show their brief slide. I just want to highlight their services so that we can thank them in a way for their support for the event. So they are, if I read their message, Aramis implement a solution customized to your business needs. They are specialists in building and managing solutions that solve critical business problems. They have expertise in ERP, HRMS, CRM, call center, e-commerce, and customized softwares. They have more than 200 clients and 8 years of service. Their offices are in Pakistan, UAE, Bahrain, and KSA. And there is a long list of sectors they have covered. So kindly give them a big hand for their support for this event.
Thank you very much, Mr. Saeed. Our next speaker, Ms. Fauzia Safdar, is a fellow member of ICAP, associate member of ICAEW. She's also MBA. She's a certified director working as a senior product development manager at Crowe Hussain Chaudhary and Company for over 10 years. She is currently a member of the Industry and Technology Committee of NRC and ICAP CPD Committee. Being a certified carbon literate, she has experience identifying GHS, human X, and industrialization, impacting climate and ways to reduce carbon footprint by creating the action plan. She has research-based experience on sustainable business practices and their impact on corporations' brand equity. Please welcome Ms. Fauzia Safdar.
Good evening and welcome everybody online and in person. Thank you ICAP Bahrain and CFA Society for giving me this opportunity to share my skill and knowledge with you guys. I hope you guys will have good takeaway today at the disclosures, which become a complex thing, what the disclosures are, which framework to use, how to make the disclosures of ESG. I hope that it will become easier by the end of the session. Can we have please? What's that? I love to hear that. Hi again. So I'm sure when you guys will be thinking about ESG reporting, this is something which is coming in your way. Oh, what's happening, what to do and how to do. So I hope that in next 40 to 45 minutes or max 1 hour, I will be able to give you some knowledge and make your life easier for that. So by the end of the session, I expect that you already know what the mandatory disclosure requirements are, ESG reporting landscape, updated global ESG reporting standard, sustainability, ESG reporting, and I use the abbreviations. So by the end of the session, you already know what these things are: ISSB, GRI, TCFD, SASB. So abbreviations look very, very fancy. I hope that we will understand. So as our previous speaker told, that there are a number of regulatory requirements available, and by the research, it's come to know that it's 614 sustainability reporting requirements from over 80 countries. Definitely, we being practitioners, accountants, financial analysts, we will be thinking that which framework, how I will disclose my ESG disclosures. So I hope we will get the answer today. ESG reporting landscape. I'm sure somehow, because I'm expecting that whoever the attendees are today in person or online, they have somehow interest in ESG reporting, investments, and everything. So you have seen on Google these kind of logos and stuff, but there is a confusion that, is this a regulation? Is this the framework? What it is? So for the convenience, I just divided that one side, that is reporting framework. I will not take the names because in next maybe 10-15 minutes, we will know what everything is. And then there are regulations, regulators, ESG rating agencies, which our speaker mentioned, that any listed company, and I want to answer here one thing that somebody asked, that if somebody is reporting is good in E, environmental, and not reporting S and G, so what's the problem? That's this kind of biased, or I would use one term here, that company is using greenwashing, just to talking good about it. So to remove the risk of greenwashing, I'm expecting that we know. Can I have the raise hand what greenwashing is? Okay. So greenwashing is that if any organization just talk about good things or good impact through environment, society, or if I talk about ESG, the first thing come to my mind is 3 Ps: people, planet, profit. So this is actually the origin from where this ESG starts. So if any organization is just giving the disclosures having good impact, that is greenwashing. And it's actually not there. They are just for marketing purpose, making their picture that we are doing this, but actually they are doing maybe 50% or maybe doing nothing. So this is what greenwashing is. So just to, yeah.
I just need to adjust for you.
Yeah, please. No worries.
You have to just reshare it. Sorry, I have. I think it will be.
Yeah, but I can slide back
Yeah.
because it's, yeah. So from here, from there. Okay. Yep. So here we are. So one thing is clear today, that everything is not your framework. Few things are principle, guidelines, few are your frameworks, some are the regulators, and some are your rating agencies. I am pretty sure that our organizer will share the slides with you by the end of this session. So I would request everybody, rather than making the clicks, or better to just listen and observe. You will get everything in your emails, okay? So, good thing, no need to worry. Work has been done for last many years, all kind of disclosures, calculations, how to disclose, how to measure. All the homework has been done by different regulators, by different organizations. Now they are just consolidating the things. And in response to COP26, IFRS, I'm sure everybody of us, we know IFRS, right? Yeah. So IFRS Foundation trustees, they announced in March, I think at COP26, that we are going to make one body who will work on the sustainability reporting or ESG reporting disclosures, and those will be standardized disclosures globally. Because being accountants, being CFOs, or the practitioners, we all very much well known about it, that there should be some comparability of the disclosures or accounting framework we should have. We cannot compare the business from one industry in one country to another industry in another country unless those are not standardized, disclosed, and no comparability. So the life is easier now. And if you look at the slide, that we have two reporting frameworks. No need to worry, we will discuss every framework right now. So SASB, IR, they consolidate into Value Reporting Foundation. Likewise, Climate Disclosure Standard Board, they consolidate, and they all merge into IFRS, we are very much familiar with. And IFRS has created one body, that is ISSB, International Sustainability Standard Board. It will be basing on two accounting frameworks. No need to worry. We will know what TCFD is. We will know what GRI is. So it's just a snapshot. By the end of the session, this slide will become easy for you guys. So no need to worry about that, what these things are. How to fit in ISB in ESG disclosure framework? I explained already. This is just a further explanation, that there is International Accounting Standard Board, and another board is there, International Sustainability Standard Board. And if you have seen under the slide that 4 reporting frameworks, that is Global Reporting Initiative, GRI, you have seen in previous slide, TCFD, Task Force on Climate-Related Financial Disclosure, Value Reporting Foundation, these all are actually helping ISSB to make standardized disclosure for ESG. We need some regulators. If regulators are not there, no business is going to do this practice. So the regulator, International Organization of Securities Commission, that organization is regulating more than 95% of world security markets in more than 130 jurisdictions. Saudi Arabia is also part of it, Australia, Pakistan. So you just think about the country, it's part of it. In 2020, I think I should not go into these backgrounds. Let's move to the topic that this commission has announced in March 2021 that we are going to support ISSB. If I'm not wrong, can I ask from you that who created ISSB? Yeah. Perfect. That sounds that you guys are listening. Okay, so this commission has announced that we are going to back or support ISSB for the implementation and adaptation. So all the listed companies, which is regulated under this commission, means that in 130 jurisdictions or the Securities and Exchange Commission, they have already announced that their listed companies or the companies who want to get listed on their exchange commission, they have to adopt ISSB to do their reporting. Yeah, so it becoming mandatory for them to do their disclosures and to remove the greenwashing. How does reporting on sustainability issue fit into reporting landscape? We all know that it's financial reporting, finances, cash flow, balance sheet, profit and loss. Now, how? We are already reporting non-financial disclosures under GAAP. So it's just now a little bit transition that we have to follow the standards for ESG reporting. And then we are doing the reporting on these three factors. Different terms are used: integrated reporting, climate related reporting, sustainability reporting. These are all same. All are actually ESG reporting. Well, as our previous speaker said, that risk and opportunities. So in financial statements, we have revenues, expenditures, assets, liabilities, cash flows. What is in ESG? Do we have something tangible? We will be like accounting for people, employees, or gas emission. What do you think that what we will be reporting about? Any answer, please? Each of what? Okay, so environment, social governance, right? So there are risks and opportunities, right? I, being a company, I'm doing the business, right? And my business is impacting environment. My business is impacting society and governance. So I have to look at what risks are there in my business and what opportunities are in my business. So the good thing is that organizations are thinking maybe we have to report about our negatives. No, we have to report our positives also. And this will become a base to attract good financing. Any organization who is following these factors and reporting transparently whatever their impacts are, and they are able to prove that they are doing good governance, their risk mitigation, having good strategy and processes, is attracting good finances, attracting investors, having good branding, good value. So these are the opportunities related to this reporting frameworks. ESG, I will just give you 1 second, just look at what the examples are. When you think about environments, carbon emission, I just don't want to read it, just 1 minute and just look at, please. Because I'm going to ask one question after it. Yeah. So my question is that everybody loves Coke, Pepsi, right? So what do you think that, as our previous speaker said, materiality, and even in financial reporting, we report based on materiality. I'm not wrong, right? Our IFRS said that we have to report material figures, material information. Material means what is significant for the organization, for the stakeholders. So my question from all of you is that in environment, in social, in governance, what do you think, what material factor can be if it's Coca-Cola production? Anything in environment, what the risk is there? Anybody, just journal, just journal. So what do you think that Coke is doing? What is the risk to Coke? When it's, you are environmental engineer, right? So Coke production, what material factor in environment you think is? Great. And what do you think?
CO2 emissions, the way they are increasing running their plants and so on. All are increasing.
Well, so we have our frameworks, they already make our life easier. They have given us the listing of the risk and opportunities, what are available under the pillars of environment, social, and governance. So looking at the materiality, the materials will be, as you said, packing and material wastage, and then carbon footprint, logistics. Social pillar can be health and safety. And any opportunity can be created in this core product if we make it nutritious. If we add some kind of vitamins in this and it become an energy drink rather than a soft drink, right? So based on materiality, you're like reporting frameworks are not asking you to report on all the factors. You have to select what is material to your organization. And this is more judgmental and subjective. So you have to do an exercise to find out what material things are. Before going onward, I want one thing to add here, that if you guys remember that the financial reporting, it's for specific audience, right? Investors, lenders, potential customers, employees, right? These are the people who, like, we are reporting our annual reports and stuff. We are doing the financial reporting. What do you think that ESG will be having some kind of audience, or it will be like, okay, I decided today I will do the ESG reporting? We cannot do ESG reporting if we don't have a purpose behind it. What is the purpose behind it? What we want to do, what we want to contribute. Second, there should be intended audience, like for whom you are doing this ESG reporting. Now, the third question will be why we have intended users. The reason is that we are giving these disclosures to satisfy the needs of those intended users. Suppose finance, right? If I'm going to have my disclosures, or Coke decided that I'm going to do the disclosures for ESG because they need investment, sustainable investments, right? So their intended user will be financial institutes, investors. So what is their expected needs? ESG reporter should know that. So for ESG reporting, generally, you have to respond to the needs of the intended users. So when you are choosing the framework, which I mentioned, we have like 614 regulations, you have to decide who your intended users are for that ESG reporting and what their needs are, because you are going to answer those needs. Moving forward, we decided today to do the ESG reporting. So what do you think that we will just start? We will take one financial reporting framework, we will follow, we will just publish and we will go? No. There is a systematic transition. Nobody expects you, any regulation, anybody, any jurisdiction, nobody expects that from the very first year, you are giving a high quality ESG reporting or disclosure. Because for high quality disclosures, you need data, right? Okay, in the first year, do you think that you will have data to compare with previous year? No. So we start with first response to ESG expectations. And that is what your regulators are asking you. Suppose in Bahrain, rather than Bahrain, if I talk about Saudi Arabia, they just in few weeks back, they announced green bonds, right? So they have to, the organizations who are willing to invest in the green bonds, they know that they have to meet the regulatory requirements to invest in that. So their ESG reporting will be in response to those regulations. Moving onward, then you will start your performance driven, because then first year to second year, you will have a comparison that what I have done in first year. Suppose I decided that I will have my GHG greenhouse gases emission reduced by 10%. Next year, you see that, oh, it's reduced by 1%. So you have a comparison that I have achieved 1%, but I have to still work on it. So you are comparing with yourself and you are comparing with the benchmarking industry. And then you are moving to the high quality ESG disclosures. That means following the standards, 100% disclosures for environment, social, governance. So this is a transitional way. This is a like step-by-step way that how you will do your reporting. Take a break. I think we have lots to digest. Why I added this screen is I just want to add one thing, that regulators, standard setters, they are working so hard to give all of us globally standardized reporting frameworks. And the good news is that they are not working further. Whatever reporting frameworks are, they are using them and taking the best out of it to create standardized reporting framework. So, as I mentioned before, GRI, it's a reporting framework. If you remember that slide, the first slide, the quadrant where the reporting was, GRI was at the corner, the framework, right? So what Global Reporting Initiative, it stands for Global Reporting Initiative, is the oldest, I would say, reporting framework. It's started in 1997. It's keep on, it's not that on the first day, whatever they made, it's done, it's best. No, they keep on improving, changing, making the amendments. And in 2016, they published latest standards. Who the audience are? All the stakeholders. I told you before, you will get, inshallah, by the end of these slides. So if you want to read more about that, who is using, what is happening, you can see. So better is just move. Every reporting framework has their own materiality definition. If I'm not wrong, I just asked in the beginning that even the financial reporting, materiality is the starting point. Am I right or wrong? Yeah. Even here in ESG, it's not required that you are doing 100 initiatives. One organization is doing 100 initiatives and they disclose all. That will be excessive information and your intended user will be lost somewhere and your purpose will not be met. So you have to be specific with your topic, that what material topic you are going to disclose. What is the requirement of your intended user? Looking at, so material topics are the topics that reflect the organization's most significant impact on economy, environment, and people. So not all frameworks are covering ESG. As you see here, they are just covering environment and people, right? They're not covering governance. Yeah. So I would say that this is one of the reasons they have to move to the standardized standard, which is coming. Good news is it's coming 2023. ISSB is finalizing 2 standards, S1 and S2. S1 is journal disclosures applicable to all the organizations, and S2 is specifically for climate disclosures. So they are going to publish it in 2023 because exposure drafts are already there. It's under discussion. So this is GRI, something look like that. Nothing to worry about. They write a lot. Even a person who is not like professional by accountant. If go and look at it, it's so simply written that, okay, this is GHG, greenhouse gas emission. If this is happening, disclose. If this is not happening, don't disclose. So they have given everything. GRI, if I give you a snapshot of it, that it's 3 modular standard. First modular is journal, which is GRI 1, GRI 2, GRI 3. Then it's topic wise, economic, environment, and societal. So based on these GRIs, these are most adapted framework. If you will look at the slide before, like 95%, no, 76% of N100 companies, they are reporting their ESG based on GRI. Task Force on Climate-Related Financial Disclosure, TCFD. Very important for us, members of ICAP, because, and CFA, that ISSB is mainly based on TCFD, specifically for climate. So TCFD is very, very easy because they have 4 factors, and under 4 factors, they have 11 recommendations. So you will just read one time and you already know what we have to disclose. This is a little bit, I would say, background of it. So when it is originally, when developed, it's developed by different stakeholders. Specifically, it was for investors, credit providers, and insurers. As you have seen in our previous slides by our first speaker, she also mentioned TCFD, because TCFD is mainly established for financial institutions, for their disclosure, for disclosure of risk and opportunities, what they have, because they want sustainable investments. They want investments they want to invest in the organizations who are doing good in ESG. So they have their own materiality definition. You guys, you will read it later. The one very important thing I want to discuss here is scenario analysis, where our engineers actually will come. Yeah. So if me as a chartered accountant, I'm thinking that, okay, I will just sit and I will make the disclosures alone, a little bit difficult because we are not climate experts. We need factors, we need measuring metrics. For that, we need experts. For the climate, for social, for governance. So we need the scenario analysis, but in TCFD, we do the scenario analysis based on climate. I told you before that we have 4 factors: governance, strategy, risk management, metrics, and targets. So I think it will answer our question in the before session that if somebody will not report on governance, disclosures will not be completed. So it will get penalized for that. So governance is that organization governance. What organization governance is around climate-related risk and opportunities, not only risk, opportunities as well, and risk as well. You have to create a strategy which will address that, how this, no need to write, trust me, you will get this. So actual and potential impact of climate-related risk and opportunities on organization business strategy. So why we create any step you guys take in any organization, you need strategy, right? So we need a strategy, how to assess, how to identify, and how to measure and then disclose the risks, right? And how to disclose the opportunities. So it will cover that. Then you need the risk management, that whatever you have identified that this my risk is because of the climate change, maybe my supply chain will be affected. Maybe there will be disruption, my production will be slowed down or maybe stopped. I cannot deliver on time. I will lose my customer. I will lose my value, brand value. So it's lots of questions which we have to relate when we are talking about climate, when we are talking about risk, that if anything happened, what impact we will have in our organizational business, right? And last but not least, metrics and targets. So we have to measure everything. So when you are doing the reporting, you have to give the financial impact of that thing. That suppose if floods happened and there will be disruption in supply chain, our organization is expecting we have a loss of this much. Or, okay, later we will give more. So under these 4 factors, I told you TCFD is easy to go. We have only 11 recommendations. 11 recommendations are that governance. We need governance. We have to describe in our reporting that board oversight of climate related and opportunities. And not only that, that the governance is there. In the disclosures, you have to tell that this is the governance and these are their responsibilities. So you have to disclose that these roles are to audit committee, CEO, CFO, you have to align and you have to give these disclosures. So for that, your governance issue will be addressed. Next is strategy. I told you before that what the financial impact will be. Scenario analysis is Paris Agreement. Who has a knowledge of Paris Agreement? I will give one more clue, 2 degrees centigrade. Anybody? Because if you guys don't know, I cannot move on. Anyone from online? So Paris Agreement, everything actually started from that thing that our industry, our businesses should not generate greenhouse gases this much that the rise in temperature will be more than 2 degrees centigrade. So they have the target to keep it lesser than 2 degrees centigrade globally, or even they are recommended to keep it lesser than 1.5 degrees centigrade. So we will make our scenarios that if the climate change will be reduced, will be 2 degrees centigrade, and there are further scenarios available. We need experts for that, by the way. So we practitioners no need to worry. So we will use the experts here. They will do our analysis and we will just look at that what financial impact can be in different scenarios. And then most material impact we will report. And we will move onward with that strategy, that how we are going to mitigate that, how we will address that. And final, there are 11 disclosures. You guys will read it. I want you to see the last one, A, B, C. Just have a look on B. Disclose scope 1, scope 2, and if appropriate, scope 3 greenhouse gases. Any idea of scope 1, 2, 3?
Just want to ask you, is this GHG protocol or PCAP? Scope 1 and 2.
So you can explain what scope 1, 2, and 3?
Scope 1 is basically related to company direct emissions. Scope 2 is indirect, and also scope 3 is a part of scope 2, but in detail, like we have 15, we talk about PCAP, they have 15 finance emission categories and that.
So with your permission, I will leave these greenhouse gases definition by the end, okay, because that is a supplementary information from me, additional information. You are 70% right. So how we have to do? If I'm not wrong, our previous speaker, she mentioned transitional risk and physical risk, right? So can I ask what you understand with transitional risk and physical risk? Anybody? So transitional risk is whatever the organizational activities are, those risks are there. And physical risk is, which is not in control of the organization or business. So physical risk, if we look at it's acute or chronic. Acute is extreme weather events, or chronic is changing weather patterns, rising temperature or sea levels, which is, I'm sure, not in our control, right? And transitional risks are related to policy. If regulator change the policy that you cannot, carbon pricing has increased, if you will, your GHG will be this much level, we will impose the taxes, and many more things. There's a story behind it. We need one more session for that. And then technology, because you are changing the product, because of the consumer demand. If we have seen that lots of demand of sustainable product, if we just talk about the fabric, people are looking for sustainable, reusable, recyclable product. So for that, definitely you have to change your technology, right? You cannot use the same technology and you can produce a sustainable product. So it is one of the transitional risk. Then market, to enter into the new sustainable market, new product, new regulations, then reputation. If you are not taking care of all these things and your reputation get affected, your consumers will not trust on you, you are losing the business, your reputation will get affected. So these are the transitional risks. And what do you think, these risks are in control of us or not? So these are in control. It all depends on how we will plan, how we will make the strategy to mitigate these risks and address on time. This is the reason ESG reporting comes, that whatever risks are there and business is going to get affected, we have to consider it, and regulators are just helping us that, okay, you give your, so what do you want? I complete it or I stop it? Well, because I'm sure that everybody know that financial ESG reporting, it's a huge topic, huge. It's 40 minutes for that. I don't think so. It's well, I tried. So somebody was asking about opportunities. What opportunities are there? You just look at that you have efficiency of resources, efficiency of production. In short run, in short term, you will not get these things, but in long run, yes. So the first criticism ESG reporting will getting that, what about cost? It's getting cost now, but revenues are not in comparison there. That's why they make a targets of 5 years, 5-year reporting, 3-year reporting, right? But opportunities are there and they are long run. And this is the reason that these opportunities will keep you in business. This is the process. I would love you guys to look at it when these slides will be shared. Any question I will try to address. Okay. Okay, I'll move forward, but I will just quickly. So governance should be there. We have to do the climate related risk materiality. Then we do the scenario analysis. By the scenario analysis, we will see that what risk is material to my business. And then I will move forward to evaluate the what impact will be, and business will report on it. And finally, we will document and disclose it. SASB, Sustainability Accounting Standard Board. Very easy reporting standard, because it has made our life easy by giving us this. So you have already seen this. I will just skip it. I will give you just a disclosure snapshot that under SASB, you can easily, because they already give you industry and sector wise what material things are, what material aspects are. You will just go in that and you will do. It's self-explanatory. Just follow the disclosures and principles and you can find out this. SDG goals. SDG goals are actually the principles, the base. There are 17 SDGs, SDG is not a financial reporting framework. Financial reporting frameworks are basing on these principles. There are 17 principles. You will just look at it. No poverty, no hunger, equality, diversity. So they have covered almost every aspect from economy, people, from planet, from prosperity. They have covered 3 Ps: people, planet, prosperity. If I will just replicate it, economy, environment, and society. So frameworks which are basing on these SDGs are GRI, which I mentioned before, Global Reporting Initiative, TCFD, and there are many others. ESG reporting strategy. Just look at it. I'm sure that CFAs and ICAP members, they know already that they have to do the materiality assessment. They have to make the baseline that we are covering only my organization, or I'm covering upstream and downstream also, my whole supply chain, right? And then we will come up with the KPIs. KPIs need to assess, to report. We will make our disclosures. So this is a whole process. Process is just like the replica, how we do the financial reporting. So no need to worry about it. I can't, yeah. If somebody starts, so this is the progression, that how it moves. You guys will look at the slides later. It's self-explanatory. Double materiality, our speaker, before speaker, she has already mentioned. I will just give you a few examples here that what financial materiality and impact materiality can be. If my organization or my business is releasing chemical which is toxic, so what will happen? It will impact my local community, it will impact water, it will impact life. It is violation of regulation, so I have to pay the fines. So it is impacting environment also, it's impacting society also, it's impacting that I don't have good governance. So it has both financial and impact and GHGs. So GHGs, as our one attendee mentioned, direct emission, indirect emission, and supply chain emission. Yeah. So ISSB, or all the reporting standards before, they said that it's mandatory to give the disclosure about direct emission and indirect emission, because it's easier to calculate, it's easier to find out. Because if I have my production facility here in Bahrain, but I have my supply chain globally, it is relatively difficult to get the data to measure the GHG emission and then report. But ISSB recently, they said that we are making it mandatory to give scope 3 emission also. So to rectify you, scope 3 is your supply chain emission. It has no relation with scope 1 and scope 2. So anything which is not covering by scope 1 and scope 2 will come under scope 3. We started with reporting landscape. We ended with reporting landscape. This is for your knowledge that what reporting framework is, what their topics are, what categories are, what industries they are following, what audience is. Frankly speaking, if I will just read the slide, it will have no value to you guys. So I think you guys will read it yourself later. And thank you.
Thank you very much. Do we have any questions? Yes.
Actually, what I understand is the whole presentation. If you follow these standards, then you can advise the investor and you can increase the customer base. Okay, but it also requires a lot of cost. Okay, from the cost perspective, if you are in transitioning your current activities to a sustainable activity. So how do you apply these standards in SME sector?
Okay.
Okay, so large companies it is fine.
Oh yeah. So yeah, sure. Please.
Secondly, the thing is, if the company is following these standards and giving disclosures about this, and they are following right 80 to 90% of these standards, they will be insured for the act of God, like from the insurance perspective. it goes for the acts of God like blood and other things. Companies are not secure. If they are following these ESG standards, then they will be like claiming for this act of God also.
Okay, so first question there, your first question was that how the cost factor transition, right? I tell you the definition of sustainability. Using the resources today in this way that we leave sufficient resources for next generation. I hope you guys understand that we have natural resources, capital, human capital, everything. We are a globe. Yeah. We have limited resources. So this is the origin of ESG, that we have to be careful in using the resources. It will not impact the life of the future generations. So as far as you are saying that, what about the SMEs and everything? It's not an option anymore, by the way. Europe has already made it mandatory in many jurisdictions, many countries, in many places. US is also working on it. Canada is working. UAE is working. So it's not an option anymore. Yeah, definitely your regulators will give you some opportunity or some time to move like step by step. That's why I mentioned you that no regulator is expecting that from first year, you will give 100% things. So you make your targets. Maybe you will starting with one target that I will introduce a diversity in my governance. Yeah, it will cost you safety and health of your employees. So step by step, it's acceptable. Regulators will accept this. The only thing organizations has to do is whatever they are reporting, disclose it. One very important thing I want to mention here, still, because all the reporting frameworks are voluntary, nothing mandatory up till now. Businesses can cherry pick. Like for environment, I am using the principle of TCFD. For social, I am using SDGs. For this, but whatever you are doing, you have to disclose. If you will say that I am following GRI completely, then it will be greenwashing. You are saying wrong, right? So step by step, regulators know that it's not an overnight thing. It will work step by step. That's why from Europe, US, they are speedily doing, but regulators are introducing step by step in Asia, right? So I hope I answered your question.
I would like to add one more thing.
Yeah.
If you are adopting the standards, definitely the cost is increasing from reporting perspective. You may have to add some and more. But on the other side, you will be definitely saving some cost as well. Like in our organization, we are a textile company. Earlier, we were using more water. When we started some initiatives, now we are using almost 50% water to produce our
resource efficiency, production efficiency. Yes. Those are the opportunities. Because we were lack of time, that's why I did not discuss in detail. So we all are stressing that under all these financial reporting standards, there are risks, there are opportunities also. Some opportunities you can encash in short term, some in longer term, but opportunities are there. And I would say it's not an option anymore. Everybody has to adopt it now or later. Otherwise, listing will be lost. Like you cannot have listing in just Security Exchange Commission.
Let me see if we have questions.
Presentation is not working.
Yeah, I have a question on green financing. Recently, we have seen that is coming up on green finance. And that is one of the reasons why there is a lot of criticism on ESG also. I've seen that multiple articles on different newspapers like Washington Post and Bloomberg and all this. So, and recently we have also seen that S&P America, they have imposed heavy fines on companies which they have found that they are greenwashing, this declaration or
misstatement of disclosures.
Exactly. So my question is, these new reporting standards which are coming up, are they going to take care of that part of greenwashing? And how exactly they are going to do that?
Very good question, by the way. So, I think our previous speaker already introduced with NFRD. So there is another reporting directive, that is CSRD. So in Europe, CSRD is one of the regulatory directive they are working on, and EFRAG. You will get everything on my slides. These all things are there. So what is happening that now the next thing is that there should be an assurance from an independent practitioner or a third-party assurance, just like our financial reporting, auditor report. There is a requirement which is going to be, it's mandatory in Europe, but it's going to be mandatory later, I'm sure, through ISSB. It will be. So there should be a third-party assurance that there is no material misstatement in ESG reporting. So nothing is going to be unanswered, nobody can, and if it will be apparent that they are doing greenwashing, the report will be qualified and will be penalized for that. I hope I answer your question.
First, I would like to get the review on governance. There are a lot of requirements in place on governance. Why there is a need for governance as part of ESG? How governance is different compared to previous governance requirements?
See, definitely governance, when we talk about governance, before governance was different, we are talking about processes, internal controls. This governance will be that we are identifying right risk and opportunities. We are making the right targets. They will evaluate, they will check, they will monitor the progress, what organization is doing with these risks, how they are mitigating these risks. Okay, so if I'm saying today that my organization will have a supply chain disruption because of high level of seas or something, so what steps we are doing? Who is going to check all about? So governance will be part of it, and governance will be addressing this and monitoring this. So it's actually the accountability that there are committees, there are people who are responsible to disclose, to monitor. So if there is any misstatement, governance will be the first factor to respond to that. Next question is, there are various framework for ESG reporting. Which framework do you suggest for implementation and why? See, it differs from business to business. I mentioned you before that GRI is the most favorite among maximum businesses, but if you want to make your life easier, use SASB, because there you don't have to do a lot of materiality assessment. And then if your business is more towards the climate change risk, then TCFD is the one which will address more. It all subjective, judgmental. You have to assess what is more suitable for your organization. Okay, so any question from audience? Yeah.
Yes.
I just wanted to ask from a different perspective, like an investor perspective. A lot of environmental financially they don't know what because they pay back to their investor. So banks don't want to invest in them that when are we going to get our money back? What do you think can be for push the banks to invest in businesses? Something we have a lot of PhD, but currently they have motivation to invest in such companies. But do you think that in future these frameworks can push them to actually invest in these businesses?
Well, what's your good name? Richard. Richard, these reporting frameworks are not the drivers to take an initiative. These reporting frameworks are the solution how to report your ESG disclosures. Regulators, regulations are the main driving force, right? SFRD, there is directives for financial institutions. So if financial institutions are not taking care of sustainable investments, so those banks cannot proceed. I mentioned you before, it's not an option anymore. So banks, you people will be surprised that the most impacted sector is not textile, manufacturing, or it's the financial sector. So maximum directives and regulations are on the sustainable financing and financial institutions. You just have to do a little bit research. Directives are there, regulations are there, and it's imposed, it's mandatory for banks to follow these. Why the green bonds are issued? Green bonds will only follow who is doing this ESG thing, right? You cannot do the green bond proceeds invested in commercial business who is not taking care of environment, society, or governance, right? And there is one more EU taxonomy, Europe taxonomy, that is also for financial institutions. They have already described that following activities are there. If these activities are addressed for investments, it will be acceptable, otherwise no. So directives are there, regulations are there, and financial institutions are the main addressing thing for that. Yeah, I hope I answered.
I think what unites all about the state that I don't think is necessarily true. So there is a lot of stakeholder pressure. There is employees, there is customers, whether it is a purpose at large, etc., which is also driving that thing. So I think in my view, a better answer would be that it is how the world is moving. We have seen right now, an impact that a whole country has been, I mean, many of us are from Pakistan, right? So the environmental impact is going to stay for the next decade. So I mean, so if we say that just because State Bank will put up a regulation, that's not the only reason. I mean, there is enough awareness now in Pakistan that even a rural area, 5-year-old kid understands the impact. Right.
So social media, literally, the positive thing about social media that everybody know sustainable, recyclable, reusable. Yeah. So this is not a new or something alien factor anymore. If we talk about Pakistan, you will be surprised that all the export companies, they have to follow ESG reporting. Otherwise, they are losing their international clients. Zara, Adidas, you just take the name. If the manufacturer is not following these ESG initiatives and practices, they are just going to, it's too much competition at the moment in developing countries. They have to improve their practices. So it's good thing is that we are already moving towards good practices. It will take time. Yeah. Anything else? Any? Benchmarking, industry benchmarking. Yeah, so definitely, like it's judgmental, subjective. So my organization decided today. So from where to start? I have to look at the benchmarking. I have to look at the industry. Maybe not in my region. It's there in Europe. I will just jump there and look at and see what is applicable to my region. So yeah, this is one of the base. We have financial reporting is also like that. What the revenue percentage should be. So we compare with the industry. We are doing good or bad. We have to improve or no. So this is all comparison. That's why we need a standardized disclosure so we can compare what is happening globally across industries.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for bearing me for so long.
Thank you, Fauzia Safdar Khan, for wonderful presentation. And definitely we have learned a lot. And my takeaway is we need to get ready to learn those standards as well. Now we are going to conclude our session. Before concluding, I would like to invite the chairman of Pakistan Club, Mr. Rehan, and he's also he's working in environment ministry, and he is by profession an engineer. Please welcome Mr. Rehan.
Yeah, thank you very much for giving me an opportunity in the concluding remarks. And thank you, our ICAP chapter. They are part of Pakistan Club. And Pakistan Club, as you all know, is the oldest club of the community, established in February 1948. I think very few people know about it, that it was established 6 months after the Pakistan came into being. And since then, it's been functioning in the Kingdom of Bahrain and, helping the communities together. Thank you very much for organizing a seminar on a very, very important topic. And honestly speaking, I never thought that our people from the finance and investing and banking institutions are so close to environment. But with this reporting, I think, the gap which is there between the investors, the financiers, and chartered accountants with the engineers, and that fraternity will come closer together. We have been doing, environmental impact assessment, environmental social impact assessments, and even in Pakistan, resettlement impact assessments for quite a long time. Basically, I was involved, and my thesis in Pakistan was on Kalabar Dam project, which becomes unfortunately very controversial due to the other political parts, but not from the environmental or social impact part. And we were much ahead in conducting those studies. Here in the Kingdom of Bahrain, also all projects, have to go through the environmental screening at the first stage. And in the second phase, when it's being assessed that the project is having impact on the environment and, the utilization of the material resources, it has to go through the proper or, environmental impact assessment procedures. Now, some of the projects which do have impacts on health is also important, which we see in this ESG is a little bit missing. So, all the major projects which is having an impact on the environment also have impact on the health, public health, as well as occupational health. So in such cases, environmental impact assessment, social assessment, and health assessments are very much required. Now, this has become a mandatory, and this is going to be, as Fauzia mentioned, stringent conditions, especially for the companies, that they need to produce, they need to generate reports which shows about their environmental, part, that how much they are contributing, either towards the benefits or towards the adverse impacts, which need to be taken care of. It's a serious issue. And I think all of us needs to be very careful about it. And then it should not be limited. What my concerns are with this profession, more than around 40 years, I've seen this, the subject growing in Pakistan and also over here, that it should not be limited to the documents only. This becomes a very unfortunate part. A lot of consultants are engaged. They get a good business. They produce a good report. That report is being publicized, and then it becomes as a desk study, and it's become only a document which is not seen or practiced. But with these continuous regulations and improvements, and especially in the monitoring part, I think we have high hopes that, ultimately it's going to benefit the people, planet, and of course, our future generations, what we are looking at. So thank you very much. And we are looking forward that I think our ICAP chapter with Mr. Saeed and also our board member at Pakistan Club, we are going to have some more programs on the subject which generate interest. And, this is an awareness scenario, awareness programs. We are going to conduct similar things like that. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Ram, for your concluding remarks. Now, I would, before we close our event, I would like to invite Ms. Hina Usmani. She's the chair of Overseas Chapter of Institute of Chartered Accountants of Pakistan, and she's a very senior fellow chartered accountant of Institute of Chartered Accountants of Pakistan. Please welcome Ms. Hina Usman.
Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Assalamu alaikum, everyone. And I really feel happy to know that our MC of Bahrain chapter has successfully conducted second successful event on a very, very important topic. I'm sure that everyone who is engaged today has benefited from the very useful discussions. And I really want to thank our partner, CF Pakistan Club and CFA Society, who have partnered with us and their speakers, their representatives for their presentation here. And I'm sure that we are going to go a long way in taking our initiatives forward together. And I really congratulate the whole team of MC Bahrain under the leadership of Said Saab, Arshad, Maneet, and all the team members. And really impressed with the presentation. I just got the opportunity to see the presentation of Fauzia. As usual, it was wonderful. And I'm sure that it's going to affect us and help us in correcting ourselves and implementing the ESG, which is in the demand of the time. So thank you very much once again, and all the best.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Now I would invite the members of management committee of ICAP Bahrain chapter and the speakers and the CFA Society chair. Please come on the stage for the photograph, please.
Okay, online.
For online audience, we are closing our meeting. Thank you very much for your for attending the meeting. Thank you.